Okay, so how to set up a ArcMap to go into PowerPoint well. So one thing to know is that PowerPoint slides have a certain size. You can change it, but by default, it's typically the same size. So if you go to Design, and you go to Slide Size, and you go to Custom, you can see what it is. It's like 7.5 by 13 inches. So what we're going to do is you're going to go to ArcMap and basically set that up to be the same. If you do 8.5 by 11, like a letter size, that's going to be similar, and you'll be able to shrink it down. But if you do exactly this size, then if you paste the image in, it'll fit perfectly. So we'll just do 13.3 by 7.5. Okay, so we're going to go ArcMap. I'm going to go into my layout view. Remember, this is the first thing about making maps. I'll move some of these toolbars. So in layout, I'm going to set my page size, which is in File, Page and Print Setup. I would just leave it as printing to a PDF. It will change a little bit if you change what you're printing to, but just leave it like that. And then if you have this box checked down here, just uncheck the box that says Use Printer Paper Settings and change your width to 13.3 and your height to 7.5. And then change it to Landscape. Oh, it just flipped that. Okay. So you might have to play with this a little bit to get it to work. Oh, okay. So what it's doing is it's showing me this is the data frame, which is that this where the data is, like, you know, in that like live box there. And then this one is showing me what the new canvas is going to look like. So it's basically telling me, hey, you're going to have to move this, which of course I do now. It's big, or it's just not the right size. So I'm resetting the data frame now, the borders of it to be very close to the edges of my canvas, which is going to make it so anything I do on the map, even up to the very edge, is just right on the edge of my whatever, the JPEG or the PNG that I create. So I usually like to go to Properties and remove the border on this thing because sometimes it gets annoying. And if you remove the border, then you just won't see the black edge of the JPEG that you create. It makes it easier to kind of put it wherever you want in the PowerPoint. So now we have this map. Now there's a decision you have to make, which is, all right, let's put some data in there so we don't think it's, so we can see kind of what we're talking about. Let's see, master database. What are my buildings? Oh, okay. All right, so here's campus. Show imagery. All right, so we got some nice bright yellow buildings, and we got campus here. What I was going to say was you have a decision point to make, right? So you can either move your data frame over and then put all of your extra information in a white spot to the right of your map, or you can have it be just as big as it was, and you can I moved everything around. Here we go. You can use the drawing toolbar to insert something like a rectangle, say in the floating here in the corner, where you're going to put all of your north arrow scale bar, text on your map. And usually I would drop one in, and then I would go. Actually, I would use the drawing toolbar to, once it's selected, change the color of it to like white. Or like really light gray. And then if I wanted to add text, you can see here's the rectangle, here's the text. I would then click and I would title of map here, and I hit enter, and now it's some text. And then if I wanted to change attributes about it, I could change it on this bar here. Bold. And then if I wanted to do a legend, I would insert my legend. I would remove the imagery because there's no reason to have that in there. And I just click all the way through, typically, and I do the legend properties after. So there's my legend. Some cool things about legend, I think we talked about a while back, are if you do the layout of the legend, you can change what type of shape it is. So I always like how this looks, just these different shapes, I like how they look. And once you change something, you can hit apply to see how it looks. Now, it doesn't look great because you can't see the outline of the buildings, but we'll change that in a second. If you go to items, so layout had that option, and then items has some other options where you can show the feature count, which is interesting. You can see it adds, there's 40 buildings on this map, and that will change. And I think that for like algal blooms, that might be interesting to add in how many actually show on the map. And then you can also do different label styles on this button here at the bottom, where there's different ways to put them on there. So you can do like left to right, like that one. It just puts it kind of at an angle. I mean, there's a ton of them. And if I added in an outline color, the legend would look better now. So now it's got a little outline on it. So there's lots of options there. And you can take the word legend off of it if you go to the general and you uncheck that box to show it. All right, so I got a legend, and then basically, as we went over, everything else is up here, right? So you're going to have your north arrow, and you're going to have your scale bar. And there's a video on how to do a good scale bar, but the basics are just add it, and then remember I told you try to make it as simple as possible with as few labels as possible that you could look at it and you can just visually with your mind looking at the map estimate a distance, right, easily. So we want to do adjust width, and we want to tell it how far we want our scale bar to be. So in this case, maybe 100 feet. We want to have like one division, maybe a couple of subdivisions, which you'll see what that means. So if I hit apply, you can see that that just cut it down to be one division, which is the whole thing. And then subdivisions would be how many times do you want to like you can see it's only got 2 blocks there. You can change the here, but the other thing I like to change is in numbers and marks. I just change divisions only, so then only one of those labels shows up. So that's a good scale bar, because then I can look at the map and I can be like, oh yeah, it's like 300 feet, like very easily with my mind. Anyway, so let's pretend we are done with our map. The other thing, just to show it, because I know people are going to ask, if you go to dynamic text and you go down to service layer credits, it will pop out that text that was down there. and you can just put it wherever you need it. So anyway, okay, we have a map. So now we're going to put it in PowerPoint, right? And we've already done most of what we had to do to get it in PowerPoint. We made it the exact right size. So all we got to do is export that and then put it in PowerPoint. So I'm going to do File. First of all, I'm just going to save this so I don't lose it. Okay, and then I'm just going to go File, and right near where I did page and print setup, I'm going to do Export Map, and I'm going to export it as a PNG I like to use, but you could do a JPEG. You'll see there's not many options here. There's really just resolution. For a JPEG, it's similar. There's not many options. It's just resolution. It's just a type of file. For what we're doing, I don't think there's any difference really. But PNGs are newer, they're fancier. So I think 200 DPI would be fine. I wouldn't want to go over that. DPI just means resolution, basically. You know, like when you look at an Apple computer screen, it's like a ridiculous DPI, but it looks like you're looking at reality. So we're going to export that wherever we're going to remember where it goes. And that was really it, is that. Clip output to graphics extent just means if you had a big canvas and you just had a little map at the corner of it, you could do it where it just exported just the stuff that you had on there, but it turns into messes very easily if you do that. So don't do that. Just leave it like this. And we'll take a second, and it will generate a file. The file looks like this, .png. We can go to PowerPoint, and we can make a new one. I usually just click on it, and I do Control A, and I delete all the stuff that's there by default for any slide, typically. And then you can just drag that on there, and it's exactly the right size. So then if you did, it's nice and ready for prime time. So you can imagine, like, it's helpful to see this because then when you're working on your map, you know, you can kind of be like, all right, it might have been small, like, on my computer screen, but it's going to be big in class. So, and if you think something seems a little bit small, it's probably going to be fine. You know, but rather do it small than too big.